First of all, Mr. Sinha, can you please introduce yourself, including your current position?
Well, my name is Yashwant Sinha. I am a member of the upper house of Indian Parliament, which is called the Rajya Sabha.
Yes.
I am a former Minister of Finance and of External Affairs of the Government of India. I was Minister for 6 years in these two very critical ministries in Mr. Vajpayee's government.
And what other specifically financial positions did you hold maybe outside of the Indian government?
Well, outside of the Indian government, I represented the country in the World Bank and the IMF.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also elected the chairman of the development committee of the World Bank.
Can you describe, I guess, for most of our listeners are probably interested in where you think India's economy is going. What are the challenges it's facing right now? And
well, we have, as every other country, some domestic challenges, some global challenges. The most important global challenge arises out of the crisis in the U.S. economy, and there are now voices which say that the crisis here could be as bad as the Great Depression of 1930. So we'll wait and see, and if the U.S. gets into a recession, then it will have an impact on the global economy. It will have an impact on Japan, it will have an impact on China, on West Europe, East Asia, West Asia, everywhere else. And because now the Indian economy is also globalized to a very large extent, therefore this global crisis arising out of the U.S. crisis is bound to have an impact on Indian economy also.
So thus far,
of this is already evident in the textile sector,
okay, great.
in the IT sector, where layoffs have started and profit margins have been squeezed.
Is that because of U.S. consumption going down, or what do you think is the direct link?
U.S. consumption going down.
Okay.
It has, U.S. is our biggest market, and if consumption here goes down, then we export less. So that will have an impact. That's already, as I said, is having an impact. More importantly, it will have an impact on sentiment. Any major economy today moves very much on the basis of sentiment also.
Right.
It's sentiment which controls the stock markets.
Right.
So if the stock markets have been impacted here, they have also been impacted in India. And there has been loss of wealth as a result of that adverse impact for the investors. So all these things are there. But I would say that because the Indian economy is largely driven by domestic demand, and most of the bulk of the investment in our economy comes from domestic resources, not from foreign direct investment, which contributes to, around 1% of our total investment. Therefore, while there will be some adverse impact for the Indian economy, I do not think that as a result of this crisis, the economic growth rate of India, which has been in excess of 9%, is going to decline substantially.
Right.
But we have concerns at home, rising prices, and the government's and the central bank's efforts to control those rising prices through monetary policy, which is having an impact on growth. But my own understanding is that even if all these factors, negative factors, were to impact on Indian economy, maybe it will shave off 1.5–2% percentage points from the growth story, which means that India will still be growing at about 7%.
So you're pretty insulated from.
Pardon?
I said, so the Indian economy is relatively insulated from the American crisis. But what do you think as far as investment? You mentioned that India was mostly dependent on domestic consumption, but have Indian companies started to invest abroad, and have you seen that happen in Georgia at all?
In large measure, in a very large measure. I was making 2 points. One, that Indian economy's growth is largely explained by a surge in domestic demand.
Mm-hmm.
Two, most of the investment to meet that demand comes from our own domestic resources, not so much from foreign direct investment.
Mm-hmm.
And, it is this entrepreneurial spirit of the Indian businessman which is now prompting them to acquire businesses abroad.
Since you've been to Atlanta a few times, I don't know if you've investigated the business climate here, but what do you think in that vein? Do you think Atlanta is a good place for Indian companies to invest?
It is, and I'm quite sure they would have invested. I wouldn't be able to give you the details, but considering that Indian IT companies have been in the field for a long time. In fact, only today when I landed at the Atlanta airport, there was an Indian family which turned up to greet me. I mean, turned up means they just accidentally recognized me and came to say hello. And, the man, the person was working for Infosys. So, there are many Indian companies, by that reckoning, which are operating out of Atlanta.
Right.
And I'm quite sure that Indian companies are looking for business opportunities in this part of the U.S. also.
And you mentioned the community, and obviously this is close to your heart because your brother lives here. But Atlanta has a relatively large Indian community, so what do you think the role of that community and organizations like the GIACC have in fostering those bilateral business relationships?
Well, I think they have a very important role because many of them will be in the category of NRIs, many of them will be in the category of PIOs. That means that they would have taken U.S. citizenship, but they are persons of Indian origin. And they are in the best position to interpret India to the Americans and interpret the U.S. to India.
Yeah.
So they are a very important bridge, and they can bring about a great deal of understanding between this region and whichever region of India they came from. So, when one talks of the diaspora, Indian diaspora, that is a very important role that they have to perform. Apart from the fact that, if they have a business interest. My brother is a professional, so he is not in business.
Right.
There are, if they are in the business of business, then there are a lot of opportunities in India and the U.S. and between the two countries.
Great. Thank you so much.